I think all of us have some place in our yard where we want to put a garden, but it's kind of a troublesome area. This is one such area that we have here. On the north side of the house, which basically gets filtered sun in the spring and more like partial shade when all the leaves fill out. And those trees above, I'd actually like to cut a lot of those branches down so we can get more sun over here. So what I'm looking at right now is something I've been clearing out. It's been raining. We had a torrential rainpour last night, which filled up the pond, and it's a great time to go and dig out weeds, and that's what I've been doing here. And they're not necessarily weeds, but they're plants that just have overtaken this little slope here, and it's just ugly. It's just a mess. If you look over here, you're going to see a bunch of chickweed, wild grasses, creeping charlie, just things I don't want in this garden at all. And inevitably they're going to blow in from the field or the meadow and come back, but for now I want them gone. We also get a lot of periwinkle, which is a beautiful vine, but boy does it take over, and it's very troublesome to me. I have to go in and yank it out from the roots. Kind of a sweet and peaceful place, but I've just got so much to do here. And over there is more of a sunny side, which I can get a lot of sun lovers in that space. So, and beyond that is the Victorian herb garden. So, this is the project for the week. What is growing in here that I like is the Monarda, the bee balm. I got a nice big patch of bee balm there, which really is perfectly fine in an area like this. I like the Dame's Rocket too, which self-seeds, but once it blooms, it pretty much dies down to nothing. The gooseneck Loosestrife is something I'm really having to thin out, because if you've ever planted it, you know it is really a ground cover. And although it's pretty when it's blooming, after that, it's nothing. It's nothing at all. So, another troublemaker in here is lemon balm. If I ever had it to do over again, I never would have bought that little bitty pot of lemon balm, because it's everywhere now. I really don't like it, aside from the fact that it smells really nice. A lot of people like to use it for medicinal purposes. I'm just not one of them. I should learn how to make lemon balm soap, and then I could at least do something. Here we've got a lot of this ground cover. I call it snow on the mountain. I don't know what it is. I pull a lot of that up too. I have to go in here and get all these roots. Believe it or not, there is somewhere around here, a spirea bush, which pretty much has been taken over by everybody else, but it's getting ready to bloom. Lots of daylilies. Daylilies are just a natural thing that grows here, so I let them be. I thin them out a lot too. And Siberian iris. So all along this dry creek, which is also a wet creek at the moment because of all the rain, I've been in this little garden here. It's really not a very little garden. It's 16 by 16. I thinned this entire area out. I pulled Loosestrife out of all of this area and left a nice space here for the Monarda to drop some more leaves, seeds, because I really like Monarda. This is one of the few lemon balm I left, and one of the reasons I don't care for it, besides the fact that it spreads everywhere, is it doesn't even have a pretty flower. It's got pretty leaves and they smell wonderful, but it doesn't really have much going for it, in my opinion, aside from the fact that, well, it likes to grow. It does its job, but it doesn't put out a pretty flower at all. But the bee balm really does. And here is a good example of that rusty ugliness that takes over on the Loosestrife. So I'm just going to go in. I'm going to chop their heads off and see if that improves the look of it. And maybe it won't grow quite so tall. It's really, really tall. But to show you how easy it is to pull up, it's got really shallow roots. There it is. That easy to pull it up. as opposed to the lemon balm, which is nearly impossible. My absolutely invaluable tool, my weasel claw, and if I didn't have this weasel claw, I just don't know how long it would have taken me to get in here and really clear this up. But it's got such a powerful, well, such a powerful claw on it. It does wonders in here. And I can just come in here and pick up all these roots and throw them in my bucket. But I'm going to have a lot of space here. And I want to fill it in with something that is beautiful and that can handle these conditions. You know, the filtered light, the partial shade. There just aren't a whole lot of plants that fit that bill. Thanks for your help. And thanks for your help too. I just have to say, I love having all this company in the garden. Everybody's here. Let's see, we've got one peacock and several chickens, 2 roosters, the dogs, the cats. Yep, everybody's here. And we even have a little duck helping today. Isn't she cute? This is beginning to look a lot better here. As you can see, I've cleared out swaths of earth in between a lot of these plantings, leaving me either somewhere to put mulch, just lay down some mulch to keep everything from growing there, or plant something different than what's here already. So this is the Loosestrife. I've really thinned it out a lot, and I've managed to uncover the Stumpery bush. It's not blooming, so you may not see it there. And I've also laid a lot of gravel here going past the dry creek. So actually what I've been able to do is make something of a path in between these 2 trees. Coming from that garden room over there in the corner, and across the dry creek, which is a wet creek right now because it rained so much. And then we've got our wall of logs here, stumps. You can get so much enjoyment out of just a simple little area like this. If you just look here, and you see this old mulberry tree. Look at just all the beautiful knots and stumps on it. It's just a great tree. I'm surprised it's still alive, but it is. And then the creek running past it. Sometimes a little duckling will swim past here, and the moss is starting to grow. And I've left quite a few of the periwinkles and 1 lemon balm right there. But what a peaceful little serene area this is right now. Just to sit on one of those wooden stumps and contemplate this very, very simple beauty, which is really more of a wild garden than anything else. I'm going to bring this stone right up to here where we have a perfect spot for a stumpery. Okay, as you can see, yeah, there's a dead old stump here. Growing out from amongst it, well, there's some old mushrooms that have just about had it. All sorts of weeds and violets and little wild flowers. But growing amongst this are the roots. The wonderful, wonderful roots. Up out of the ground, all knotty and fine and covered in moss and really, really interesting. But you can see the possibilities here for a lovely, lovely stumpery. Just look at all these roots. I really can't plant anything else in here. Nothing is going to work. Alpine plants, perhaps. Maybe primroses. The real primroses, primula. But I'm going to clear this out, fill it with probably a lot of compost so that it'll be ready for planting bulbs in the fall. So this is my next step, clear all that out, make it ready. This is at the top of this wild garden, basically wild garden slope. So we will bring the stone all the way. This area has changed quite a bit since I first started clearing it out a few days ago. Where all the stone is, this was covered in vines and weeds and chickweed and a lot of plants that I had too many of, like lemon balm, just things I didn't want in here. It made it really messy looking. And it is sort of a wild natural garden, but nevertheless, I didn't want it looking that bad. So I still have a lot to pick right there up on that slope. So now I'm pretty pleased with this area. You can walk right into it. Stone is a real lifesaver sometimes because it's just so difficult for the weeds to come through the stone. Although they will, but they'll be a lot easier to pick and control. And so I've left a lot of spaces in here. It's still a pretty wild garden, but I have got it in a lot better shape right now. I really like it. And I decided to leave this little area bare. So I covered it in about 5 inches of mulch. And I'm going to use this not as a planter, but as a bird bath. I'm going to put a large bowl in the center here and just fill it with water for the wild birds. And let it be a focal piece here. I have to admit, this is a pretty woodland garden. It really is lovely. And now that it's a little bit better managed, I think it could be a great place to just sit and read. Last video I mentioned that I was going to use the Rose of Sharon to try to make a privacy hedge. So I got a lot of the twiglets from the Rose of Sharon's, extra Rose of Sharon's growing here, there, and everywhere in the garden. And I planted them along the stump line, all about 3 feet apart. Some are smaller than others. This will take them, they won't grow into a tree for a couple years, but probably by next year this time they will be 36 to 40 inches tall, and they will actually be putting out flowers already. That's the beauty of Rose of Sharon. They're pretty trustworthy. So this was a fairly long job. I don't know, it took me 3 or 4 days and I'm still not completely finished. But I think it really looks very much better than it did. It's a very pretty woodland garden. Very natural. And a lovely place to just sit down on a stump. With this area, which is the Stumpery. Look at all that great moss on that. Look at this knot. This is such a great, great Stumpery area. But I filled in all the empty spaces that I got the weeds out just because there were very tiny weeds and grasses, very troublesome, very tedious to get out. I covered it in a layer of mulch, a good layer of mulch, because I don't want them to return. And if they do, they'll be easier to pick. In the meantime, I want this just to stay as it is. This section right here. Very shady, very stumpy, very woodsy, very interesting. I just love this little section here. But what this needs in the fall is for me to come in and put more bulbs in. More daffodils, muscaries, small alliums, maybe some Helebores. All the small, the blue crocus, all the wonderful little short things that bloom in the spring. I just love this area. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? Now this area right here, I still need to weed. If I don't, all these tiny little weeds like this chickweed, they're just going to throw seed all over my mulch, and they'll grow right, the weeds will grow right into that mulch. So right now I'm trying to clear this little section out. I am learning to appreciate. Now it's quite treacherous. It's really, really sharp, and it's got a razor sharp edge on the side, but it's for digging little weeds. It's for getting in there and really pulling them out. And the angle in which I purchased it was way worse than this. My husband had to bend it to give it a better angle. It was a very uncomfortable turning on that. It didn't feel natural when you were actually using the tool, but I want to show you what it's good for. Here in the Stumpery, we've got some tricky little things. But to pull this, to get this thing in here, it just really goes in there and grabs that stuff. But you can get in all these little crevices here. And these are easy to find on Amazon or your garden center. Another thing that would be great in here, Helebores would be great in here because they like the shade and because they bloom for such a very, very, very long time. And you really want something blooming up here after spring is over. So that's the Stumpery section. I brought it down pretty far. I probably will plant other plants in here. Then we've got the stone, one little path leading through certain islands of plants, a focal point right there with the watering basin for the wild birds, and here is an area that can be planted with some shade lovers. My last step here, I still have more weeding to do, I shouldn't say that. It's the last step. James brought me 4 carts of stone so that I could clean up my walkway that goes down this slope. And this stone, as again I said, is great for keeping out the weeds. I really hate weeding this section 2 or 3 times a year. It's just a real pain. So the stone hopefully will keep those weeds down quite a bit. But this looks so much better than it did before. And if you don't know what it looked like before, here's a reminder. This was from last week's video when the baby ducks were walking through this very section. Down at the bottom, here we have the dry creek, which is actually drying up again. And some beautiful bloomers. Oh yes. And more beautiful bloomers right here. This is the Roald Dahl, David Austin. There are 5 of these in this strip. This one's doing the best because it actually gets more light than everybody else. So the only eyesore at this point is the propane tank. Can't do anything about that. And believe it or not, 99% of what you see right there on that hill are plants, flowering plants, not weeds. I do see 3 mulberry trees that I need to pull out. And the Victorian herb garden really needs to be weeded. We'll come back to this in a while. Oh, looky here. They love it over here. Look at the family, they're really growing. So let's see, we've got Pitty Pat Mama, Clark Gable the daddy, and I've named the 3 babies. I don't know what they are. I hope they're all girls. But we're going to hope they're girls, so we'll name them Minerva, Hetty, and I guess we'll name one of them a boy. We need another Dominicus. So Dominicus, Minerva, and Hetty. The herb garden is filling in, but it's also filling in with a lot of little weeds. So there's another weeding job for me. Last night, part of our chimney fell off, broke off the roof, and came tumbling into the Victorian herb garden. And it broke one of my fences that I had built. As you can see, it's a good thing James bought me that welder, because I think they're going to be needing a real true welding job now. Oh well. Lamb's ear, catmint, sage, oregano, chives. This is going to be a very lush garden. In fact, it's already pretty lush and sumptuous. A lovely place to come and sit on a stump. Lots of stumps to sit on. Don't need any chairs, we've got them. And they're all natural, because this is a very natural space. So from next time in Hopalong Hollow, we will go along and we will plant that skinny border along the walkway. And we'll also make a meal. I have some great dishes I want to show you. So from Hopalong Hollow, this is Jerry, and we will see you next time in the garden. Bye-bye.